And I love that. It's like
good.
one of my favorite parts. It's just like, I'm just going to
Yes.
sit outside. Like, this is literally all I'm doing right now. And that's enough.
Yes.
So
it's
good.
like time to just be. Like, just be.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Are you an RV person? Or are you just RV life curious, wondering how people live in a tiny space with their family 24/7? Either way, this is a podcast for you. My name is Kate White, and I travel full-time with my family and 2 kids and the dog in an RV. Every week, I sit down with a fellow RV woman to learn why she chose RV life and how she has changed on the road. Pull a chair up to the fire and let's chat.
Hello, my friends and fellow RV queens. This is Kate White, your host, coming at you from beautiful northern Michigan, where it is a perfect 72 degrees. Oh, I love it up here so much in the summer. Today, I had the great honor of chatting with Vanessa with The Adventure Detour, and her husband and her daughter have been on the road for 8 years. 8 years since 2015. Like, what were you doing 8 years ago? Probably wasn't living in an RV because not very many people stay on the road that long. Her perspective is like so optimistic and positive, even though she shares all these stories about living through the craziest stuff, like having to move because of wildfires and hurricanes, and during, like, she talks about life on the road during COVID and nutty. She is such a gem, and I really love this conversation. I think you will too. Let's get into it. Hello, Vanessa, and welcome to the RV Queens podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Hi, Kate. Thanks so much for having me today.
Of course. I'm excited to chat with you. You've been on the road for 8 years.
Yes,
which is
it's
a
not
lot.
Supposed to be 8 years. Yeah.
Oh, we'll get into those juicy stories.
Yes. Well, you know how that goes. Like, there's always a plan when you start. It's usually a 1-year plan or a 2-year plan, and then it just kind of morphs from there, right? If it's working, don't bother it. So we just kind of kept on going. We started with a 2-year plan, and then here we are. I said if I was going to sell the house, I kind of felt like it had to be at least 2 years, to go through all of that. And then we just never stopped.
Okay.
It's been a wild ride.
I have a lot of questions about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But first of all, where are you coming? Where are you guys at right now?
Yeah, we're in Orlando right now.
Oh, in the middle of summer. So you're
it's
roasting.
I don't recommend Orlando in the summertime, by the way, or Florida, period. But yeah, that's where we are.
I'm up here in Michigan.
Yay!
Look at this. It's like a cloudy
Michigan.
day, and it's like 70 degrees. And
yay!
So
it's not
good.
like 100. That's amazing.
No. And I've never been to Michigan. I'm from the Midwest. I've never been to Michigan, and I'm totally falling in love with northern Michigan right now. Like,
so pretty.
Ready to buy a house and just live in the woods and wait for the snow to come.
Oh, it'd be pretty, wouldn't it? Yes. We love it up there as well.
Oh my gosh.
We did a summer up there, and I want to go back because it was really pretty. Yeah.
You've only done one summer up here over 8 years?
Yes.
Oh man.
I know, it's so far. It's so far, but yeah, it's a beautiful spot. So I'm glad you're having fun. Where in the Midwest are you from? Because we're from the Midwest too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I saw that in your bio. I am born and raised Missouri, but me and my husband have been living in Omaha. He's a Nebraska boy, so we've been in Omaha for the past 11 years until we started RVing. Yeah.
Okay.
What about you guys?
Well, we're from Kansas City, so we're also from Missouri.
Oh my gosh! Are we related?
Yeah, I don't know. Are you from Kansas City too? Isn't that funny?
My aunt and uncle live in Kansas City, but I'm from Kirksville, Missouri. Northeast.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay.
Truman State University.
Yes.
That's right. Oh my
That's
gosh.
awesome. It's a small world, isn't it?
It is, seriously. And there's a lot of Midwesterners I've met on the road. Probably because we all want to see the beautiful mountains and beaches that we don't have any of. There's just the flat farmland. So,
it's so funny.
On this note, though, will you take us back to before you guys lived in an RV? Like, what was that, 9 years ago? Before it?
Yes.
what did your life look like? And, were you working 9-to-5 jobs? Like, set the scene for what was going on in your life leading up to you making a huge life change to
Yes.
live in an RV.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. So we were your normal suburban family, and we had just built a house a few years earlier. It was like our dream house, right? Quote unquote dream house, in the suburbs. And we had regular full-time jobs, and it was pretty much something that we had never even thought about before. We'd never camped before, period. Not even tent camp before. I had never been in an RV or a campground. So it was really a weird thing, but I had a friend. Back then, there weren't young people necessarily full-time RVing. Like now it's a lot more common. And so a lot of people have heard of younger people doing it. But back then it was still mainly, retirees, and then some single couples that didn't have, kids yet necessarily, but not really families. And so I had a friend that was homeschooling, and she told me about this plan to sell her beautiful house and start doing this with her 2 kids. And I thought I was like, are you okay? I'm like, are you nuts? Have you lost your mind? And she laughed. And then she started to explain to me how they were going to swing it and how it would work for their family. And at first I thought she was kind of nuts, but then I started researching it on the side. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If she can make it work, I wonder if we could make it work. And so the wheels kind of started turning a little bit. And I still didn't say anything to my husband. And we had, our daughter was 5 at the time. And so I finally mentioned it to him, and he's like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? We have a 3,000 square foot house crammed full of stuff. And you think the 3 of us are going to live in a tiny camper? And I'm like, yeah, I think that could be an amazing experience, And so the next thing I knew, he was on board too, and we were putting the sale sign in the yard. So,
oh my gosh,
which was really scary, really scary.
When you were talking with your friend who was making the life change, what was it about the lifestyle that resonated with you that made you really dive in feet first without ever being in an RV before?
Yeah, that's a good question. Just wanting quality time as a family, kind of putting an end to the go activities, that shuffling the kids here and there and sports and all the friends, and then all the traditional jobs, and just everything kind of taking apart from the family time. And she just thought that if they simplified their life, lived small, and had that time together, that it would be really great for their family. And I was always kind of trying to get that taken care of too, because I was staying home with my daughter already at the time. I'd already planned to homeschool her when she was school age, so that wasn't like too far of a stretch for us. But I always wanted more time together, more time to travel that we just never had, working full time, trying to pay for the house. It just was never there, And so that kind of called to me. I'm like, man, if we could downsize our life enough to afford to do this, then we would have less stuff, but, more time together, which is amazing. And it really is actually that way. So it was worth
Very
it.
cool. And then what kind of jobs were you guys in that were able to transition to living on the road?
So I was already working from home in an MLM, selling healthcare type products. And then my husband had a traditional in the office type job. So when we downsized, we were able to just go off of mine initially. And then since we've been on the road, we've transitioned away from that business and started being content creators and travel writers and bloggers and a lot of those kind of side freelance gigs, which is kind of made our lifestyle also our business, which is great because we love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's like you have content for what you're creating anywhere you go. So
yes, exactly right. Now I wish I knew that back then when we started, right? Because we didn't start creating content till the last couple years. So all of those trips were just iPhone videos. Or iPhone photos, no videos. I just want to smack myself now. I'm like, we went through all those national parks and took an iPhone and took pictures. No videos at all. It's like, oh, come on. I didn't know.
Right. Well, if back then, like before shorts, like short videos and reels and stuff came out, if you weren't going to create long form YouTube videos, why would you?
No, and no one was
video,
even on Instagram hardly back then. Like, none of that stuff was a thing. So it's all different now. And now I'm like, oh, shoot, I wish I could go back in time.
I know. Oh, okay. Yes. Well, now you know, and you guys have a really hopping account too online.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
So you weren't familiar with RVs at all. You guys wanted more family time together. You were already planning to homeschool. You decide to sell your dream house. Was this kind of, bold life change kind of characteristic for you and your husband? Or like, how did your friends and family in Kansas City respond when you started talking about what you were going to be up to?
Not characteristic at all, because we were always super responsible and a little bit traditional. And so kind of the same reaction I had to when my friend told me they were doing it was the same reaction that our friends and family had. It was like, are you guys okay? Like, are you okay financially? Is your marriage okay? What are you doing? It was like, no. It has nothing to do with financial situations. It's like, everything's okay. We haven't lost our mind. It's not a midlife crisis. We're good. We just want some experiences together. You mentioned in the Midwest, growing up that way, like, we had never been to a national park before, which sounds extremely funny now because we've been, I think, to almost 40 now. But we had grown our whole lives growing up in the Midwest and never been to a national park. And I thought, I don't want that for our daughter. I really want her to experience this beautiful country and learn, firsthand. And so it has been a gift for sure.
That's so good. So she was 5 when you guys started. Is that right?
She did. Okay. She just turned 6. Like, she had her birthday when we were taking off.
I bet she loved it. Oh, that age is so fun because everything's exciting. So how has your homeschooling approach changed over 8 years? I mean, the age of 6 to... What, is she 14 now?
Yeah, she's turning 14 this month. Well, in August, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, it's a lot of changes in a kiddo between those ages. So how has your schooling approach kind of morphed over the years?
When we were in the house thinking we were going to start homeschooling there, I was super traditional curriculum, box curriculum, on a schedule, thinking I was going that way. And then when we changed our plans and decided to hit the road, everything kind of had to change because some families make it work, travel slower, have a traditional type of curriculum, but others are more relaxed and more in the road school sort of sense. So at 6, she's excited about everything. And we incorporated, the national parks and the junior ranger programs and a lot of the state parks and their programs and just more like actual learning at the places that we were traveling to as part of her school. And that's completely the opposite of my structured way that I was thinking we were, really going to homeschool. And now as she's gotten older, now we're in an 8th grade. So we've had the whole span on the road. It's a little bit of a mix because now she's getting older, so she needs some traditional curriculum and materials. But then she's still learning from our travels and the places that we go. But yeah, it's been interesting because little kids just love all the things. And then teenagers pretty much hate all of the things. And so
she's like, not another national park, Mom.
Over it all. She's like, you couldn't pay her to do a ranger program anymore. And that hurts me in my heart because I just have those gorgeous family memories. But they change. And if we were in the house, we would have similar changes. So we just kind of have to go with it. But it's changed everything because now we travel really slow and we use Orlando as our base because that's where her friends are, and teenagers want to hang out with their friends rather than travel. So we kind of have to have a little bit of a mix there, a little bit of travel and then a little bit of a stability.
I was going to ask that too about like your travel style over the years. Mm-hmm. When you started out, were you just like, bam, 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 move all the time, see all the things, or...
Yep. I think everybody does that the first year.
How long did it take you to burn out on that?
Yeah, right? I know you did the same thing. Yes, right? The first year is crazy because you feel like you've got to do all the things. You don't know how long you're going to live this lifestyle usually. And it's just like, how far and fast can I go? How many national parks can I hit? How many state stickers can I add? And it's It's like a marathon. And then I want to say sometime in year 2, we were all exhausted and burnt out a little bit. And you kind of start to feel like you're going through the motions a little bit. Okay, we're at another national park. Okay. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible feeling because this is such a great opportunity. But when you're just going so fast and not taking the time to rest and kind of take it all in, it's just constant new activities and new places. It kind of starts to all fade together. So yeah, about year 2, we had to kind of reel it back in a little bit, slow it down. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Is that what happened with you guys?
Well, not exactly. And but I've heard a lot of people say that exact thing. And even a lot of people I've interviewed on this podcast talk about that same effect, because when they start the RV journey, it's because they want to see everything. But for us, we chose the RV life because we wanted to visit specific cities to choose where we want to move next. And which I don't think I've met anyone else that had that approach. Like, we weren't getting into it to be like adventurous, let's explore the US people, and most other families are. Now, like, we've been on the road about, I think we just hit our like 10-month mark or something. Now we're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to see. Like, the more you see, the more stories that you hear about cool other places that we need to see. And we started out thinking we'd be on the road a year, and we're like, haven't even made it to Yellowstone, you know? Like,
see, there you go.
I don't think it's gonna be just a year. Kind of like you were saying at the beginning, you gave it 2 years, and now it's been 8. I do want to ask about that. Like, surely you've had moments where you were done, you know, over the 8 years.
Like a lot still. Every time you have a moving day and stuff breaks, you're done. Right. And that's a lot of travel days. You have stuff that breaks and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so done. I'm so done. Yeah. So thousands of times probably over the years. And then COVID. So when being on the road when COVID hit was the absolute worst nightmare. So we were in Florida when that happened. And so RV parks were shutting down like crazy because they were considered non-essential travel type industry. And so just like with the hotels and their Airbnbs and the campgrounds, they were all getting shut down. Well, it's not non-essential when you live in your RV, you know, and you have to have a place to go. And so it just put everyone into a horrible frenzy. And so a lot of the people that started back when we did actually got off the road during COVID because it was kind of a panic time. And so a lot of people bought land to park their RV on or decided to have a home base for when stuff hits the fan, you know. And so luckily it ended up working out better for us in Florida because some of the campgrounds said, no, we're not booting people. We're going to stay open. But a lot of the West Coast was not able to do that due to regulations. And so they booted people. So tons of people flocked this direction from out west trying to find a place to go. And it was just downright scary. Week to week, you didn't know if you're going to have a place to go or not. And I thought, well, crud, I don't know. I mean, I guess if worse came to worse, we would have put it in storage and just had to drive back to the Midwest and stay with family for a little while. But that was brutal. I'm not going to lie. So yeah, there's been a lot of weird times where we've thought we've got to be done and yet we're not done.
So, okay, aside from COVID, when you've just hit those moments that felt like burnout, you know, on the road, what keeps you going year over year?
Knowing that every time I sit in one place for longer than a few weeks, I start to lose my mind.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, like, I mean, after 3 weeks, maybe a month I can do. And then I just start to go a little bit crazy. And like, if we ever are not in the RV and we go stay with family, I lose my mind really quickly in a house. I start getting really stir crazy. I think there must be a point after you've done this for a while where this is normal life and like anything else doesn't feel right anymore. I know that seems weird, but it kind of gets to where it's like that. Like you're used to moving and you're used to exploring. And when you don't have that, you almost feel, I don't know, like a fish out of water. It's kind of strange. So this is normal now. But when we don't have it, it feels kind of weird. Now, I wouldn't mind, we often mention this, I wouldn't mind having, because we have our big fifth wheel, which is a real pain in the butt to tow and go a lot of places. It's limiting, right?
Yes.
So I wouldn't mind having a home base, like to keep the big fifth wheel in a campground year round, and then have something smaller that we can really make tracks with, like over the summer, and then come back over the winter to like our, big fifth wheel again. So I wouldn't mind having some kind of hybrid arrangement, but I don't have the budget at all for that. Maybe someday, right?
Did you guys start out in a fifth wheel, or did you change over the years? Or
we've had two. We started out in a 40 foot rear bunk room, and then we switched about 5 years ago to a mid bunk that was 42 foot. We went the wrong direction because now I wish we was gone smaller. But it's so hard. I know you know this too, to find the right size rig that's good for daily living, like enough space for your whole family and their needs, but that's still easy to drive and park and go places in. And really, it doesn't exist. It's one way or the other.
Well, and we started out in a pre-owned mid-bunk fifth wheel that we did not have inspected.
Oh, shoot.
And it was a piece. But we didn't know. So we actually bought a brand new one 3 months in. A new fifth wheel comes with its own problems. Like our bedroom slide pretty much has not worked for the past 9 months since we bought it. And it's just been like in the shop and forever and ever. But the reason we bought this model, we have like the front living, and then in the back, it's the master bedroom, I guess, with the loft above. And we fell in love with the living space. But now that we've been living in it, we're outside all the time. I'm like, what were we thinking? Like, we live in beautiful places. And the point is to be outside. Why did we think we needed a full living room in this thing? Ugh, whatever.
It's hard. It is so hard.
There's no perfect one either. I mean, everyone you talk to is like, yeah, well, this thing is broke and the thing, and it's just how it is.
There's always something broken. Yes.
That's right.
It's part of the deal. That's good to know going into it.
That's right. Acceptance is, we just live in acceptance of this.
Right?
How it is.
Yes.
Okay, so online, you are really outspoken about sharing both the joys and the challenges of RV life. And I'm curious to hear, why is that so important for you to highlight both sides?
Well, part of what you were just explaining, stuff breaks all the time. Because when you're only seeing the happy moments, the amazing travel photos, the epic shots, and then the happy RV life moments, it's easy to think that that's reality. And of course, that's just capturing awesome moments to put online. But then there's a million moments in the background where it's a hot mess. When we were researching to live this lifestyle, I mentioned there wasn't really hardly any families doing this. And so there wasn't a lot of resources back then. So I started the research in 2014, and there wasn't much. There was a few Facebook groups that I would look at constantly and ask tons of questions and take notes. But it was really hard to find out what a real budget would be like, and kind of what to expect. And so we spent a lot of time talking about that because, like you mentioned, almost every month there's something unexpected, large expense that happens, whether it's a really big RV repair, a really big truck or vehicle repair, a reroute due to weather, to wildfires, to crazy storms. Your cheap campground you planned on may not be where you end up because it turns into an emergency situation. There are so many crazy unknowns that happen all the time. So I kind of want to paint both sides, so folks know if this is worth getting into or not before they take the plunge, right?
That's right. And I have, someone was just talking to me, what's the word they used? Like taking the risk of living on the road because you just don't know the expenses that are going to pop up and stuff like that.
Right.
And to me, it's like, if we owned a house, stuff pops up. Like, it's life.
It
like
does.
The furnace breaks, the AC goes,
Yes,
like the roof.
it does.
It hails. Like, there's a flood, the basement floods. Like, whatever. To me, it's like, pick your poison. You know,
exactly.
You're going to deal with it.
That's true too. Yeah,
with
that's
the house,
true too.
You're going to have to deal with landscaping and, you know, like the stuff that comes with living in a house and managing a huge house and cleaning it.
Definitely.
It's also, those challenges are present living in an RV, just different.
They're different. What we always say is everything is amplified. So when you're in a house, if you get sick and you take a little bit of time off work, go home and lay in your bed, you're fine. If you're in an RV and you hurt your foot or your leg or you're sick, you're not fine, because usually your reservation's up. You got to go whether you want to go or not. It's hard to find a new one. You've got to find a place to be. Like, it just seems like everything is so much more amplified. Like, okay, so your RV breaks down and your rig's in the shop. Now you're living out of a hotel for an undetermined amount of time because the shop's not in a hurry to get your stuff fixed and they don't care that that's your house. Like, it just is so mind-blowing how fast and crazy things spiral. And then that's when it gets really expensive. We've lived out of hotel rooms for 3 weeks at a time before waiting on repairs. Like, stuff gets wild and you don't really know that until you're kind of in the throes of it, you know,
That's right.
But we've had injuries kind of derail us and mess things up before too. And it's just like, man, when you're in your house and you're on a trip, you could just go home and rest, right? But you're home and you can't go anywhere to get away from your problems. So it's like you're stuck.
Yeah.
That's when things get really, excuse me, I have a fly problem big time right now. But yeah, that's when things get really nuts.
How have you learned to handle that stress over the years? It sounds like you've had some really crazy times.
Some insane times. We've had flood evacuations. One time we were in a flood and we got stuck in the campground. The flood, we couldn't evacuate. We've evacuated wildfires. We've been through a couple hurricanes now. Like, it's just, the longer you're on the road, the more weird, crazy things, you know, pop up. So I try to have the mindset that, this is why I try to tell people too, the best of your ability, that it's like all part of the adventure, right? Later you're going to look back and it's a wild story, right? Oh my gosh, you remember when we were going through COVID and we didn't know if we were going to have a place to live, you know, or that crazy wildfire and we made it out. Like, it's going to be a good story later, but in the throes of it, it's so stressful at times, you know. You just wish you had a place to go to be done with it, but you just kind of have to weather the storm.
So when you look back over the years here, you know, you started out in 2015, you lived through COVID madness on the road, and now we're coming out to the other side where people are like full travel mode again all over the world. How has RV life changed in your perspective over the years? So
much. So much. So, you know, it actually changed before COVID started to get a little nutty. Even in 2018, 2019, we started seeing campgrounds being full. Reservations started to get harder. It just started to change a little bit. So, and especially now, like going to a national park, trying to get last minute reservations at a campground, it's just a lot more crazy. So the way you have to adapt to it is you just have to plan really far in advance and expect some crowds. You're not going to have places to yourself anymore. But man, those early years, you could just kind of fly by the seat of your pants. You're like, okay, I love Michigan and I want to stay here as long as we can. Let's just see if we can stay at the campground longer. And there would be a spot for you. Or, hey, I found this cool state park down the street and we should go there next. Okay, you could probably get in, but that's just not where we're living anymore with camping. And so you just have to really plan it as far in advance as you can. And when stuff hits the fan and your reservations fall apart, like we were talking about, you have to try to take it in stride because that's rough.
Do you know Mel Lard?
I don't.
I think their handle is Lars with Latitude. They've been on the road about the same time as you. And I interviewed her a couple months ago. And then, so they traveled to Greece recently and came back and they're in the US again. But I asked her a similar question and she said the exact same thing. She said, you used to just be able to kind of bop around wherever you wanted and you could find a spot. And now she's like, everything's getting crowded.
Oh, it's so crazy now. I know. But it's okay. It's still worth doing. We're still doing the thing. It's just you have to be so much more organized. And I'm not usually that organized. So it's crazy. It is crazy. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know where you're going to be next month, along next year. So, yeah.
Oh, man. So when you look back and think about yourself and your life before you lived in an RV and you were like a full-time homeschool mom / trip planner and, doing all the things.
Yeah.
How do you think you've changed over the years?
Oh, man, so much more flexible. Like I mentioned, being really organized, thinking I was going to homeschool with all this curriculum and all these plans. And our life was like that. I was super planner personality. And you just can't really be that way so much on the road because, like we talked about, stuff changes frequently. And it just kind of teaches you to appreciate where you are. Like, okay, maybe our trip somewhere got canceled because everything fell apart. Let's just appreciate where we are right now and kind of go with the flow and enjoy this instead. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just puts you in a different kind of frame of mind. Really, it slows things down. It's good. Mm-hmm. It's really good.
To me, it's kind of like, when you have a new baby and
yes.
It's like, I don't know where you were in your life, back then, but I was like trying to have a career and like working a bunch of hours right up until I had the baby. And all of a sudden I had this baby and it's just like, oh, I just have to sit here and
the
feed this for like an hour? This is all I'm doing right now? Like, it's kind of the same feeling to me. It's like this like jarring, like
yes,
what?
It has to be.
I'm just sitting outside in the sunshine and that's all we're doing right now. Amazing. You can
that's
just
so
do
true.
this?
Yes. You described it perfectly. It's just, everything is different. Yes.
That's right. And I love that. It's like
good.
One of my favorite parts. It's just like, I'm just going to sit outside. Like, this is literally all I'm doing right now. And that's enough.
Yes.
So
it's like time to just be. Like, just be. Yeah. It's okay.
You don't have to be a productivity machine right now.
Right?
Just sit
but
here.
For our kids, too. I love that for our kids because that's not that there's one lifestyle that's better than the other. It's not. It's just different, going activities and plans and constantly being on the move versus having a kid sit outside and dig in the dirt, read a book, or go on a hike. It's just a really cool, different way that they get to experience life. Yeah. So I love that too.
You have visited 42 states. Is that still accurate? 42?
Yep. That's
you didn't sneak an extra one in on me?
No, I wish. I'm ready to
go. Yeah, I bet in Orlando in the middle of the summer. I'd want to get out of there too. Almost 40 national parks. So do you have like a top 3 that you can tell us that's like, you must see these?
Yes. Okay. So that's always hard. But like our number 1 is Acadia. We love Maine in the summer. And you're like, oh, you haven't been back to Michigan because we kept going to Maine.
Gotcha. Okay.
Love
Noted.
Maine. Yes, love Maine. In fact, I wish I was sitting there right now. But it's just such a beautiful place in the summertime. And it's a vibe like no other place in the country. That part of Maine and the national park is just, and going to Bar Harbor, it just doesn't compare to anywhere else. And so that's got to be number 1 for sure. Number 2 is probably Yosemite, because Yosemite is just Yosemite. It's just, you cannot beat the beauty of the waterfalls and the granite and hiking there. It's just, it's so one of a kind. So definitely there. And then number 3 is hard because we really liked Zion a lot. And then we also liked Olympic up in Washington. But yeah, okay, so probably either Zion or Olympic. Olympic's really special because it's not just mountains like you would think, okay, it's a mountain national park. It is, but it also has a rainforest, which is weird for Washington. Most people are like, there's a rainforest in Washington. I had no idea until we went. And then it has a coastal section with the most unique rock formations and driftwood, and the coastal part of that north area in Washington is just mind-blowing. Actually, Forks is right near there where the Twilight series is, like,
oh, yeah.
I don't think it was actually filmed there, but it was modeled after Forks. And so it's a cool, like, really rural area, and you see a bunch of Twilight stuff up there. So that one's probably number 3 because it's just it's unique. It really is.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're all great. Oh my gosh, they're all great. Yeah.
Okay, tell us about, as far as practical RV life, what's an RV hack that you are constantly telling people about, or camping, or like something with this lifestyle that you just find yourself repeating over and over? Just
to slow it down, like what we talked about, going too fast, but especially when you have kids, like, you have to have time for daily living. A lot of people think RV life is just vacation. Like, it's just every day hiking in national parks and every night a campfire. And in reality, that's not how it is at all. Like, some parts of it are that way. Some days of the week may be that way. But a lot of the time is just daily living. You still have to do your laundry and go to the grocery store and pay your bills and then just, like, rest, and chill out. But it just helps everyone enjoy the experience more if you plan some down days mixed in where you can just relax at the camper, get your, laundry done, do your things, or just so kids can have time to play and just be kids or get work done or whatever you need to do. But it just seems like it goes so much easier if you plan a little bit longer stays so that you have maybe half of it adventuring and half of it just like living life, celebrating fun holidays or doing things with your kids. Like, still want to do crafts, still want to hang out and do the kid thing, right? So it's kind of it's a balancing act, and that's a balancing act that no one can hardly find. I'm not acting like I have it because I don't. Yeah. No one does. It changes constantly, but you can slow things down when you need to. It's all good. Okay, so you're settled in Orlando right now because it sounds like your daughter has friends there and kind of trying to strike the balance of, community and travel and stuff like that. Yeah. If I said, Vanessa, you have to pick a place to have a sticks and bricks house again and settle into the community, would it be Orlando, or where would you settle? No, would not be Orlando. No, my daughter would say Orlando, of course, because her friends are here. I like Florida because I like to go to the theme parks, and then we like to go drive over the beach and stuff. But I love the mountains. So, like, if I had an unlimited budget, I should start there, right? Okay. If I had enough money to live wherever I wanted and I could go there right now, it would be Bend, Oregon, because I love Bend, Oregon. I love the climate, the mountains, the volcanic. They have lava tubes, the hiking. Like, it's a one-of-a-kind place, Central Oregon. And so if I had the budget, because it's extremely expensive to live there and I don't have the budget, but I think that's where I would pick if I absolutely could. Yeah. Bend, Oregon. Okay. Noted. Yeah. Have you guys been out there? No. Mm-mm. You will love it. I mean, we haven't even made it. I told you, we haven't even made it to Yellowstone yet. We have not gotten anywhere west yet. So you'll get there. Where we're heading west is fall. Wonderful. Yeah. You'll love it. You will. I'm looking forward to that. So your handle on social media is The Adventure Detour. I'm curious about that name. Is that something you came up with, your husband? What does that mean to you guys? Well, that was our life detour. So I say that we took a detour from life when we sold the house toward adventure. And that's definitely where that name came from. And we started a website as bloggers, and that's kind of where we started, and then got social kind of going a little bit later. But now it's kind of a big, part of our business and our life too. So it's kind of both. But yeah, it was just our life detour, really. It's kind of been crazy, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Sounds like it. Sounds like you've built a lot of resilience over the year too. You learn a lot of flexibility, and you got to handle a lot of stress and build a lot of resilience. That's right. It's great though. It's great. It's one of those you'll have stories definitely to pass down. Yeah. Okay. I have one more question for you, and then I'll have you kind of share where
where all on the internet people can connect with you. So the slogan for the show is a podcast about unexpected riches. And I'm curious to hear, what's the unexpected richness that you have found from RV life?
Probably an amazing connection with nature, especially for our daughter. So when I mentioned that we had never been to national parks before, we had never really even been hiking before. And so I have a funny story. So we went to Kansas City REI location for the first time right before we left home. And REI was newer store back then in Kansas City. And we bought hiking shoes. And I remember talking to the salesman about this. And I said, we're doing this thing and we're going to go to all these national parks and live in our RV and we need hiking shoes. And I don't even know what a hiking shoe is compared to my tennis shoes. So can you help me? And I remember leaving the store with those hiking shoes and just feeling so excited, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go someplace and use these shoes. And so the very first time our family put the hiking shoes on was in Acadia. And that's another reason why we love that park so much. But watching our daughter hike for the first time up a mountain, and all of us hike for the first time up a mountain, was like a bucket list life incredible. That feeling like, okay, I have on my new hiking shoes and I'm in an actual national park doing this. It was life changing. And yeah, I can never replace that feeling. It was worth it. At that moment, you're like, I don't care about the big house. I don't care about the 2 cars we used to have and all the stuff, This is it right here. It's just our family and our hiking shoes.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good story. Why do you think it was life-changing for you?
Just because I thought we would always have the life that we had, because that's what you're told to do. You're told to have the nice house and go to work every day and come home. And that's the dream. And it takes a lot of courage to step away from that and say, this is okay to have this dream for people. There's nothing wrong with that dream. It was fine for us for a long time, but that it's okay to have a different dream.
Good. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's really precious. Yeah. Can you tell listeners where they can connect with you online?
Yes. So we have a website and that's our blog and it's theadventuredetour.com. And then we're on social at The Adventure Detour on pretty much all the platforms. Instagram's our main account, but we're on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and we're kind of on Threads. I don't know what to think yet about Threads.
What's going on with Threads? I don't know.
I'm trying. Yeah. I'm trying, but not doing very good there.
Yeah.
But it's there. Technically, it's there. Yeah.
So good. Well, thank you for taking the time today, Vanessa. I really love chatting with you, and I especially enjoyed your just helpful, what's the word I'm looking for? Stance on RV life is not perfect, but it helps you slow down, and that's the point. It's a good perspective that you have. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, well, I hope I can see you on the road sometime when you are not in Orlando.
Right?
Yes. Okay,
I need to come up that direction for sure.
You should this fall. Head out west. That's where we'll be.
Yes.
All right. Yes. I will talk to you later. Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the RV Queens podcast. If you would like to be on a guest on the show, click on the link in the show notes to the guest application. And if you would also please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the video, that would help us out a lot. Thanks a lot, and I will see you on the road.
Jarring, like